chosen one. Have you ever noticed how the urges hit hardest? Right after you pray, right when you're seeking God the most. It's like something invades your thoughts. You don't even want it, but it keeps pulling you in. That overwhelming sexual desire, that sudden fire in your body. It's not random. It's not your hormones. It's not just your past. It's an ancient tactic, a spiritual weapon, and it's aimed directly at your purpose. Because hear me, the enemy doesn't attack what's worthless. He doesn't tempt the ones already lost. He goes after the chosen, the marked, the ones who carry fire in their bones. And if he can seduce your mind, he can silence your spirit. This is not just a desire. This is not just lust. This is spiritual warfare. And it's custom designed to destroy what God is building in you. You were called to break chains. So the enemy tries to put new ones on you. You were called to walk in purity. So he sends poison, wrapped in pleasure. But today, you're going to see this for what it really is, and once you see it, you'll never be the same again. So before we go deeper, I need you to do 3 things. If this message is already stirring your soul, hit the like button so this reaches more of the chosen. Subscribe if you haven't, because this is not a random channel, it's a weapon of awakening. And comment 99 if you know you're in the final stretch before your breakthrough. Why 99? Because the shepherd leaves the 99 to rescue the one that's about to rise. And maybe that one is you. Now stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you next will shake the very core of how you see this battle. Ready? Let's go deeper. Chosen one, you've been asking, why does this temptation feel so specific, so personal? Here's the truth. Because it is. The enemy isn't guessing. He's studied your bloodline. He knows your triggers. He knows the weight of your calling. And he knows that if you ever step into your full authority, hell loses territory. You weren't born to blend in. You carry divine power in your very DNA. That's why you feel things deeper, why your struggles hit harder, why the fire comes for you again and again. Because you're not just anybody. You are a threat. The enemy doesn't waste energy. He's not after your body. He's after your clarity. Because when your vision gets clouded, your destiny gets delayed. And here's the part no one tells you. The temptation you're facing is tailored. It's designed like a spiritual algorithm to exploit every wound, every moment of loneliness, every crack in your armor. Not because you're weak, but because you're dangerous. Your purity isn't just about behavior. It's about spiritual signal. When you're clean, you hear from God faster. You move in power. You speak with weight. You shift atmospheres. But when the enemy entangles you in secret sin, he distorts your frequency. You second-guess yourself. You delay obedience. You confuse conviction with condemnation. And just like that, your divine momentum is paused. Because a distracted chosen one is a delayed chosen one. And here's the deception. The attack doesn't feel like a battle. It feels like desire, pleasure, a harmless release. But behind that pleasure is a spiritual agenda, and its goal is simple: to disconnect you from your fire. This is not just lust. This is not a phase. This is not something everyone goes through. This is war, and the battlefield is inside you. So if you've been wondering why it's so hard to break free, it's because the chains were forged in the spirit, not the flesh, but now you see it. And now, you're no longer blind to the trap. The question is, what happens next? Because in the next moments, you're going to uncover something far more dangerous than the temptation itself. You're going to see what triggers it and why it hits hardest when you're closest to your breakthrough. Keep watching. The real enemy is about to be exposed. Let's go deeper now, Because what I'm about to tell you, few ever realize. Chosen one. Sexual desire is not the enemy. Desire was created by God. It was placed inside of you as a sacred fire, a gift designed for covenant, intimacy, and creation. In the right context, it's holy, it's powerful, it's divine. But here's the danger. When the fire is stolen from the altar of purity and ignited in isolation, lust, and secrecy, it doesn't bless. It burns. Desire is a doorway, and like any door, it opens to two realms, the sacred or the sinful. One leads you into union with purpose, peace, and presence. The other drags you into cycles of shame, confusion, and hidden torment. The enemy doesn't need to break your life in public. He only needs to invade it in private. And every time you surrender to those midnight urges, every time you click that link, entertain that thought, replay that fantasy, you're not just making a mistake. You're opening a portal, a spiritual access point. And with every unguarded moment, you allow something unclean to attach itself. To your mind, your emotions, even your sleep. That's why after it feels good, you suddenly feel empty, disconnected, spiritually numb. It wasn't just a release, it was a transaction. You gave something away, something sacred, and in return, you received a counterfeit comfort. That fades as fast as it came, and here's the trap. You tell yourself, this is the last time, but each time you give in, the desire grows darker, the thoughts get bolder, and the guilt gets heavier, until you begin to wonder, is freedom even possible? But here's the truth most people never hear. You're not broken. You're in a war, and the war is not to destroy your desire, but to redeem it. Because when your desires are purified, they become a weapon for God, not against Him. Imagine this, a version of you, with the same fire, but under divine authority, directed with clarity, fueled by purpose, unashamed, unshakable. That version of you already exists in God's plan, but you have to fight for it. And before we move forward, let me ask you something. What if the thing you think is your weakness was actually your training ground? What if the very desire that torments you now was meant to be transformed into a spiritual mantle that frees others? Because in the next part, you're about to discover why the attacks intensify right before your next level, and why the enemy doesn't care about your past. He's terrified of your future. Stay with me. The shift is coming. Chosen one. Have you ever wondered why the battle gets louder just when you start getting closer to God? You feel it, don't you? The moment you decide to fast, here comes the urge. The moment you have a breakthrough, suddenly you're tempted harder than ever. After you speak in faith, after you pray with fire, after you say, "This time I'm done for good," that's when the temptation slams in like a wave. That's not a coincidence. That's not your imagination. That's spiritual interference. The enemy doesn't attack when you're standing still. He waits until you move. He waits until momentum builds, because he knows you're about to level up. He can sense when heaven is preparing something. He hears when angels are dispatched. He feels the weight of what's coming your way. So what does he do? He throws the most familiar weapon he has, the flesh. Because if he can trap you there, he can block you from entering your next. See, there are realms of glory you can't access with unclean hands. There are doors that won't open unless your heart is aligned with the Spirit. And the enemy knows that better than most believers do. That's why he doesn't need to destroy you. He just needs to distract you, delay you, detour you. Think about it. Every time you're about to step into a new level, a relationship comes back from the past. A memory reawakens. An image pops up on your phone. An urge creeps into your body, not because you're failing, but because you're on the edge of something sacred. Listen carefully. The warfare is loudest when heaven is closest. The battle rages right before the breakthrough, right before the blessing, right before the shift. And here's the part no one sees. While you're wrestling with temptation, there's movement happening in the unseen. Demons assigned to delay you, assignments crafted to confuse you, all because you're about to unlock something eternal. You think it's just another moment of weakness. But in the spirit, you're standing at the door of your next dimension. And if the enemy can keep you stuck in shame, if he can convince you that you're too dirty, too addicted, too far gone, then you won't even reach for that door. He doesn't fear your past. He fears your becoming, because when you cross over, you won't just live free. You'll start freeing others, and that is what terrifies him the most. So now the question becomes, will you surrender to the trap? Or press through the tension? Because in the next segment, you'll discover what's really fueling the fire inside you, and why most chosen ones keep falling, even when they're desperate to rise. You're closer than you think, but only the awakened will overcome what's coming next. Listen closely, chosen one, because the lie ends here. The enemy has whispered it long enough. You're too broken. You're too far gone. If you were really chosen, you wouldn't struggle like this. But here's the truth. You're not weak. You're dangerous. The attack isn't proof of failure. It's evidence of your anointing. Do you think darkness wastes time chasing someone with no future? Do you really believe hell would send reinforcements for someone who poses no threat? Temptation doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're seen. You've been spotted in the spirit, marked, tracked, watched, because what's inside of you carries weight. Heaven has put something on your life that hell cannot ignore. So every thought you've had that said, I must be broken because I still struggle, throw it out. That struggle is not your identity. It's your evidence. The evidence that you're carrying something hell fears. Let me ask you, have you ever noticed how the warfare seems custom-made for your soul? So personal it feels like a setup? That's because it is. The enemy studies your patterns, your wounds, your gifts, and tailors the perfect storm. Not to defeat you, but to convince you to defeat yourself. And if he can make you think, that temptation equals disqualification. You'll start sitting in shame instead of standing in grace. You'll stop praying. You'll pull back from purpose. And just like that, you delay your own destiny. While the enemy stands back and watches without even lifting a finger. But hear me, temptation doesn't disqualify you. It identifies you. You are under attack not because you're broken, but because you're about to break through. Every chain that tries to hold you knows what happens when you finally walk free. Every spirit that whispers in the dark knows the roar that will rise when you reclaim your voice. You are not weak. You are anointed. You are not failing. You are rising. And no matter how many times you've fallen, there's still breath in your lungs. Which means you're still a threat. The fact that you're still watching this, still listening, still fighting, it means the devil failed, and you don't even know it yet. But you're about to step into a version of yourself that hell never wanted to see. So let me say it again, louder than your doubts. You're not under attack because you're losing. You're under attack because you're chosen. But what if I told you that the final piece, the thing the enemy fears the most, isn't your strength, but your revelation? Because once your eyes are open to this one truth, you'll never fall into the same trap again. That's coming next, and it's going to change everything. Now that your eyes are open, it's time to fight back, but listen carefully. This battle can't be won with willpower alone. This isn't just about trying harder. You've already tried that, and it left you exhausted, defeated, ashamed. That's because you've been using natural weapons to fight a spiritual war. The enemy doesn't fear your effort. He fears your alignment. You don't overcome the flesh with discipline alone. You overcome it with divine strategy, and that starts with prayer. Not casual, routine prayer, but violent, raw, honest communion with God. The kind of prayer that pierces through darkness and activates angelic backup. When you open your mouth in faith, you are not just speaking into the air, you're shifting the spirit realm. Next, fasting. Fasting silences the noise of the flesh and awakens the voice of the spirit. It tells your body, you are not in control, and tells heaven, I'm ready to go deeper. Some chains don't break until fasting enters the fight. It's not punishment, it's positioning, and then community. This one feels uncomfortable because shame always wants isolation. But isolation is the enemy's breeding ground. He wants you alone, silent, secret, hidden. Because if no one knows, then no one can fight with you. But when you bring your struggle into the light, its power begins to break. That's why accountability is warfare. When you let someone in, when you stop pretending and start confessing, you disarm the enemy's greatest weapon, secrecy. Remember, the flesh is loud, but the spirit is stronger. The voice of temptation may scream, but the whisper of the Holy Spirit carries authority. And here's the truth the enemy hopes you never realize. You don't fight desire with shame. You fight it with truth. When the enemy says, you'll always fall, you declare, I've been made new. When he says, this is just who you are, you remind him, I've been set apart. When he says, you're too far gone, you say, grace found me, mercy kept me, and I'm still rising. You are not powerless. You are not a prisoner. You are not bound by your past. The same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead now lives in you, and if that power lives in you, then you don't just survive the attack, you reverse it. You reclaim territory. You break cycles. You leave a trail of freedom behind you, because once a chosen one wakes up, hell starts to tremble. But there's one final revelation you need, one that seals everything we've said and awakens the warrior inside you for good. Don't miss it, because the next words may be the most important you've ever heard. Chosen one. This war was never sent to break you. It was sent to build you. Every battle, every temptation, every silent night where you felt unworthy was proof that something sacred is inside of you. You've been hunted because you're holy, targeted because you're dangerous, attacked because your calling shakes the gates of hell. But now your eyes are open. This is not about lust. It's about legacy, not about desire, but about destiny. You're not disgusting. You're not disqualified. You're not dirty. You are divine. Territory, and hell knows it. But here's what hell didn't expect, that you would rise in the middle of the storm, that you'd wake up and fight back the moment you stop fighting with your flesh and start fighting with the Spirit. The chains start to fall, the cycle starts to break, and you begin to walk in unshakable power. This war wasn't your end. It was your awakening, because now you know you were never weak. You were always chosen, and what once tried to destroy you will become the fuel that launches your purpose. So lift your head, sharpen your sword, stand on truth, and walk like the warrior you are. This battle is not your defeat. It's your announcement. Declare it now in the comments. My soul is not for sale. Say it with fire. Say it with power. Say it like hell can hear you, and if this word shook something inside you, like, subscribe, and send this to every chosen soul you know, because the war is real, but so is your victory. This is your moment, your awakening, your rise. Now go, and make hell regret the day it came for you. You're not under attack because you're losing. You're under attack because you're about to reign.